These are the 5 biggest mistakes that I've made in my fall garden so you don't miss out on this highly productive season. I can confidently say that all of us make mistakes in our garden every single year. But the 5 mistakes that I'm going to be going over today are probably the biggest ones that you absolutely do not want to make if you want to have a productive and successful fall garden. First is don't plant too late. And this might seem obvious, but literally every single day that you wait, the time is ticking. You're one step closer to your first frost. And this first frost marks the end of your growing season for all of your tender veggies. But if you take advantage of the season while the days are still long and the weather is still warm and your soil is still warm, you can start a ton of veggies right now that will begin to grow and set you up for success even after the frost comes. If you don't know your first frost date, I want you to pause the video and look it up right now. I'll put a link for you down in the description. This date is so important because, as I said, it's the end of your season. But if you're a smart gardener, you can use this date to plan ahead and understand when you actually need to get your plants in the ground to get them growing before that first frost arrives. So if you want to grow a fall garden this year, keep listening to these tips, but also check out this video right here where I share a dozen plants that you can be growing in your garden right now. The second mistake is forgetting to reset your soil. Your plants have been pumping out fruit all season long. You can't just rip these plants out and plant new ones in and expect them to perform as well. You need to feed the soil, which is then going to feed the plants. This is my second crop of tomatoes this year. These are my fall tomatoes. So before I planted these in the ground, I added some balanced fertilizer, some azomite, and some worm castings. And this is going to provide the soil all of the nutrients that it needs in order to help these plants grow in fruit before the frost arrives. And you can just see how lush and green these tomato plants are. Hopefully, you fertilized your garden at the beginning of the year. Maybe you applied some compost. Maybe you actually applied some fertilizer or azomite or worm castings like I did. But I would say more likely than not, you probably didn't do anything throughout the year. Don't be mad at me if you did, but I know how my life works, and I know most people are busy. You probably just didn't get there. So take the second, feed your garden, and it's going to help your plants grow and establish so much faster. And especially if you're growing some cold hardy plants, it'll make sure that they are ready for that frost and can continue to grow even after it arrives. I know some people are going to come at me and be like, Phil, why don't you just add compost? Well, compost actually takes a long time to break down, and it slowly decomposes over the course of about 5 years. So adding some compost now is not necessarily going to benefit your fall garden, but it is absolutely great if you're planning to continue gardening in the future. So go ahead, get those fertilizers down, and also if you want to, throw on a layer of compost because that'll break down over the winter and help you out next spring. And if you don't plan on growing a fall garden this year, I definitely recommend you get some compost down across your whole garden, just 1 to 2 inches, which will help to protect your soil and break down over the winter so you're ready to go off to the races when the season starts next year. Third is ignoring or forgetting about frost protection. I feel like I find myself every single year just like looking at the weather one day and just seeing frost advisory, and I'm just like, crap, I totally forgot to get my frost cloths out or my plastic row covers to create miniature greenhouses. It always happens. And now that I'm extremely busy, it's good that I'm thinking about these things right now so that way I can get them ready. So when my first frost rolls along in the beginning to middle of November for me here in zone 7B, I'm ready. Because I feel like every single year I'm running around the house trying to find some extra blankets that I can throw on top of my plants to keep them safe from that early first frost. So don't be like me. Get yourself some frost cloths, get yourself some plastic covers. You can even get them from like big box stores like Home Depot. The thicker the plastic, the more protection that it's going to provide for your garden. I personally like to use a 5 mil or a 7 mil thick plastic. Works just fine. Create yourself some miniature greenhouses out in the garden, and I'll make sure I link to another video that I have made down in the description. The fourth mistake that I don't want you to make is not succession planting. And you may or may not have heard of this term before, but succession planting means you're not planting everything at the same time. Let's say I go to the store and I buy a seed packet and I plant all of those seeds at the same time. You're going to get all of your harvest at once. So here's a few different ways that I like to succession plant, and one of them I guarantee you most people do not talk about. First is, let's look at this garden bed right here. In my last video, I showed you how I just ripped out all of my winter squash because we got a couple dozen beautiful winter squashes that we're going to be able to eat all throughout the winter. But now you can see that there's big spaces. I still have some green beans that are growing here. So the way I'm going to succession plant is by planting some stuff in the middle here. I just rip a plant out and I put a new one in. That is succession planting. I'm not leaving any garden space empty. I'm going to immediately plant something in to grow. So in here, I planted some cabbages as well as some beets, which are cold weather loving crops, and they're going to continue to grow even after I get a frost. The second and the most common way that you can succession plant is literally just not plant everything at once. Say I want to plant some lettuce in these beds back here. Instead of just planting all 3 rows at the same time, I'll plant 1 row, I'll wait a couple weeks, plant another row, wait a couple weeks, and plant the last row. So that way I actually have staggered amounts of time between each maturing period. So that way I'm not getting all of my lettuce at the same time. This is key, especially for an at-home gardener, because you most certainly do not need 27 heads of lettuce at the exact same time. So use this very simple yet effective strategy. Just be careful as you're approaching your first frost date, because you don't have as much time as you might think. And third, this is probably my favorite way to succession plant. So in this bed here, I've got some fall cucumbers. I planted these a couple weeks ago, and I'm hoping that they can mature and give me some cucumbers before our first frost, because cucumbers are not hardy. They're going to die as soon as they experience any frost. But what I've done with these is I've planted different varieties that have different maturity times. So that way I can plant them all at the exact same time, and I know that I'll start to get some in as little as 45 days, and other ones will take up to 60 days to grow. So I'll have a pretty good period of time, at least 2 weeks, between when I get my first cucumbers to when I get my last ones. I love doing this because I don't have to think about all of the different dates that I need to come out to my garden and plant something. I could just, hey, write this on my calendar, plant cucumbers on this day, plant all of my different varieties, and I'm going to get a steady stream of cucumbers until they die off. And my fifth mistake is, do not forget about pests. I know, as the fall comes in, it can seem like a relief. Like the mosquitoes are gone, all the bugs are going away. We don't have the squash bug or the squash vine borer anymore. But let me tell you, especially here in southeastern Virginia, we can get a lot of rain during this season. And this is when we get slugs and snails and aphids, and those cabbage butterflies are still flying around. So you definitely want to make sure that you do not forget about these pests. So I've got some broccoli planted back here, and as soon as I sowed my seeds, I made sure to cover them so that way they're not getting destroyed as soon as they start to sprout. So this is just a subtle reminder to go outside and make sure you're interacting with your garden. It's arguably more important for you to be more engaged into your garden right now because your plants are growing slower. There's more risk involved. So you want to make sure that you have success with these plants. So just go out and look at them every couple days. Make sure you don't see any pest pressure. And if you do, just remove them. And hopefully you'll have some really good success in the fall garden. Every year I make mistakes, but every year I also learn something new. And these 5 mistakes are the ones that really hit the hardest. And if you can eradicate these in your garden, you're going to be so successful, not only in the fall, but throughout your whole gardening season. So I really hope that these help to prevent any heartache that you would have out in your garden and get you growing an amazing garden this year. And before I let you go, if you want more accountability, more guidance, less stress, and systems that actually work, so that way you can become the master of your garden, check out the description and come join us inside of my private community here at Earth Nails and Tails. We've got some really passionate and really experienced gardeners that are just waiting inside to help you become the master of your garden. We have years of experience. We have made tons of mistakes ourselves. But more importantly, we have figured out the systems and the practices and the techniques that we can apply to pretty much any garden to be successful. So if you've really struggled this year and you're like, Phil, I tried to grow my garden this year, I don't know if I want to grow again next year because it just wasn't successful, please just come and join us, give it a chance. We've got amazing content inside. We're doing weekly Q&A sessions. We've got monthly master classes, and I've got over 5 different courses that you can get inside for free once you're a member that will help you become the best gardener that you can be. So if it's your goal to grow an amazing garden like I have here, or even scale things up to a grander scale, I've got everything inside for you. Can't wait to see you there.